If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would miss you, my daughter snapped at my birthday, while everyone laughed and nodded, as if I were just a wallet on legs. So I vanished, leaving them penniless. They went crazy when the bills piled up, and stability melted away. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you were listening in the comments. Dad, if you disappeared tomorrow, nobody would miss you. We'd just find a better ATM. The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I stood there, birthday cake knife still in my hand, 62 candles flickering mockingly in front of me. The dining room went silent for exactly 3 seconds before Grady erupted in laughter. Harlan, your daughter's right. We men are only needed for the checks we write. Marigold clapped her hands together, delighted. Oh yes, as long as the money keeps coming, who cares about anything else? My wife Loretta shifted uncomfortably but didn't defend me. Instead, she managed a weak smile. Juniper, don't say that. Although really, stability is what matters most in a family. The cake suddenly looked grotesque under the warm dining room lights. Yellow frosting roses that Loretta had carefully piped this morning now seemed to mock me. 20 years of birthday cakes. 20 years of trying to make these moments special. Is that all I mean to you? The question escaped before I could stop it. Juniper didn't even look up from her phone screen. She was already posting something, probably a selfie with the cake in the background. Her thumbs moved rapidly across the glass surface, more engaged with strangers online than with her own father on his birthday. Don't be so dramatic, Dad. You work, you pay bills, you provide. That's your thing. The laughter around the table crescendoed. Grady slapped his knee, Marigold wiped tears from her eyes, and even Loretta chuckled softly while cutting additional cake slices. The sound bounced off our suburban walls, trapped in this house I'd been paying for since before Juniper was born. I set the knife down carefully, my hand steadier than I expected. Excuse me? Nobody seemed to notice when I walked through the kitchen and out the back door. The March air hit my face like a cold slap, but it felt cleaner than the suffocating atmosphere inside. Behind me, I could hear their voices continue, the party apparently unaffected by my absence. Our backyard stretched into darkness, the security light casting long shadows across the lawn I'd mowed every weekend for 15 years. The house glowed warm and inviting from the outside, yellow rectangles of light spilling onto the patio where I stood. Inside, my family continued celebrating without me. Juniper's laughter carried through the sliding glass door. She was probably showing Grady and Marigold something on her phone, some video that was infinitely more interesting than acknowledging her father's existence. When had she stopped seeing me as anything more than a walking bank account? The birthday decorations Loretta had hung this morning fluttered slightly in the breeze. Streamers, balloons, all the trappings of celebration for a man who apparently wouldn't be missed if he vanished. I touched my shirt pocket where I kept my wallet, feeling the weight of credit cards and cash that seemed to define my entire worth to these people. 37 years I'd worked at the same engineering firm. 37 years of early mornings and late nights, missed ball games and postponed dreams, all so they could live comfortably in this house, drive reliable cars, never worry about money. And this was my reward. Through the window, I watched Loretta serve cake to her relatives, animated in a way she rarely was around me anymore. When had we stopped talking about anything beyond logistics? When had I become just another household expense to manage? The cold seeped through my shirt, but I didn't go inside. Not yet. I needed these few minutes to let the truth settle into my bones. I was invisible in my own home, valuable only for what I provided, not who I was. The realization should have devastated me completely. Instead, something else was beginning to take shape in the darkness of the backyard. Something cold and calculating, born from the ashes of my shattered illusions about family loyalty and love. The next morning, I made coffee for Juniper. My hands moved automatically through the familiar routine, while my mind replayed last night's humiliation in sharp detail. Dark circles under my eyes reflected in the kitchen window, evidence of hours spent staring at the ceiling. Juniper appeared in her pajamas around 9, hair messy from sleep, already reaching for her phone before her feet hit the kitchen floor. I held out the steaming mug, hoping for something, an apology, acknowledgement, anything that might bridge the chasm that had opened between us. June, can we talk about yesterday? She accepted the coffee without looking at me, her eyes fixed on her screen. Thanks for the coffee. She started scrolling through social media, completely absorbed. About what you said at dinner. It really hurt. Dad, it was a joke. Why are you being so serious? She still hadn't made eye contact. Her thumbs continued their endless dance across the glass surface. It didn't feel like a joke when everyone was laughing. Now she looked up, but only to roll her eyes. Maybe because it's true? You just work and pay bills. That's literally what dads do. The casual cruelty in her voice was worse than yesterday's calculated attack. This wasn't malicious. This was her genuine perception of my role in her life. I was a function, not a person. Is that really all you think I am? She put in her earbuds, effectively ending the conversation. The white cords dangled against her neck as she turned away, sipping the coffee I'd made while ignoring my existence. 20 years of bedtime stories, scraped knees I'd bandaged, school plays I'd attended, all reduced to nothing. I found Loretta in the kitchen, preparing her weekly meal prep. Containers lined the counter in perfect rows, evidence of her need to control and organize everything in our domestic sphere. Loretta, can we talk privately? I'm listening. She continued chopping vegetables, the knife hitting the cutting board in rhythmic thuds. She wouldn't even pause her routine for this conversation. About last night, what Juniper said, what everyone laughed about. Harlan, you're being too sensitive. She's young. She doesn't understand how her words affect people. She's 20 years old. She understands exactly what she's saying. Loretta finally looked at me, but her expression was impatient rather than sympathetic. Don't be so dramatic. We appreciate what you do for this family. What I do, not who I am. You're the same person. She returned to her chopping, dismissing my concerns with practiced efficiency. You provide stability, security. That's important. So I really am just an ATM to you? The knife stopped moving. Loretta sighed, the sound heavy with exasperation. You're being ridiculous. Of course you're more than that. But yes, your contribution matters. Would you prefer we didn't need you at all? The question hung in the kitchen air, mixing with the scent of bell peppers and onions. She genuinely didn't understand why I was upset. In her mind, being valued for financial contribution was enough. Being needed for practical purposes should satisfy me. Maybe I would prefer that, actually. What's that supposed to mean? But I was already walking away through the kitchen, past the dining room where we'd celebrated my birthday 12 hours ago, into the garage where I could think without witnesses. The garage was my refuge. Tools hung in organized rows on pegboard walls. My car sat clean and maintained, everything in its designated place. This was the only space in the house that was entirely mine, where my presence wasn't questioned or measured against financial output. I pulled open the filing cabinet where I kept important documents. Bank statements, insurance policies, mortgage papers, all the evidence of my utility to this family. 37 years of earning, saving, providing, documented in neat manila folders. My hands were steady as I spread the papers across my workbench. Monthly expenses, automatic payments, credit card bills that Loretta and Juniper generated without thought. $4,800 a month in various obligations, not including the mortgage. How long would they last without me? The question formed itself with mathematical precision. How quickly would their casual dismissal turn to panic when the money stopped flowing? I sat in my desk chair, surrounded by the evidence of my family's dependence on my labor, and felt something fundamental shift inside my chest. The hurt was crystallizing into something harder, more purposeful. They wanted to reduce me to a function? Fine. Let's see how they managed when that function stopped working. At 11:30 that night, I carried the financial documents from the garage to my home office. The house was silent except for the gentle hum of the heating system and the distant tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Loretta's breathing was steady and deep from our bedroom. Juniper had gone to sleep with her earbuds still in, probably listening to music that helped her forget our morning conversation. I switched on the desk lamp, creating a circle of warm light in the dark room. The papers spread across my desk like a map of my family's complete dependence on my income. Bank statements, credit card bills, utility payments, insurance premiums, all flowing automatically from accounts I controlled. The math was simple and brutal. Mortgage, $2,100 monthly. Utilities, $350. Car payments for both vehicles, $850. Insurance, $400. Credit cards that Loretta and Juniper used freely. averaging $900, groceries, gas, miscellaneous expenses, another $800. Total monthly burn rate, $5,400. My salary deposited $4,800 after taxes. We were running a deficit that I covered through careful management and occasional overtime. They had no idea how close to the edge we actually lived, how much planning and sacrifice went into maintaining their comfortable illusion of financial security. I pulled out photo albums from the desk drawer, flipping through pictures of better times. Juniper at 5, sitting on my shoulders at the zoo, her face bright with wonder. Family vacations where she still wanted to hold my hand, still called me daddy instead of dad with that tone of bored obligation. "When did you stop loving me, June?" I whispered to her 7-year-old face in a Christmas morning photo. The computer screen flickered to life when I moved the mouse. I typed, "How to disappear without a trace" into the search bar, surprised by how many results appeared. Articles about people who'd vanished from their old lives, started fresh somewhere else, left families who took them for granted. Most were revenge fantasies, but some offered practical advice. Opening new bank accounts in different states, establishing residency elsewhere, the logistics of disappearing in modern America when everything was tracked and documented. I opened a notebook and began writing. First, I needed to understand exactly how long they could survive without me. Second, I needed to establish my own independent resources. Third, I needed to plan my absence carefully, long enough to teach them my value, not so long that they suffered permanently. This wasn't about destroying them. This was about making them understand who I really was beyond my bank account. The pen moved steadily across the paper. Transfer funds to new account in different bank. Research apartment rentals in other cities. Arrange temporary leave from work. I had 6 weeks of accumulated vacation time. Let them wonder where their ATM had gone. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I barely noticed. For the first time in years, I felt focused and purposeful. Not just reactive to their demands and dismissals, but actively planning something that would change our dynamic forever. Bank routing numbers, apartment listing websites, storage unit rental facilities. I researched methodically, the engineer in me creating detailed contingency plans for various scenarios. If Juniper tried to contact me, what would I say? If Loretta involved police, how would I handle questions about my mental state? They thought I was predictable, boring, just a reliable source of money and stability. They were about to discover how wrong they were. The first light of dawn was beginning to creep through the office windows when I heard Loretta's alarm clock ring upstairs. I quickly gathered the papers and notebooks, filing everything back into the cabinet. When she came downstairs in 20 minutes, I needed to appear normal, just another ordinary morning in our suburban routine. But everything had changed. As I climbed the stairs to shower and dress for what might be my last normal day at work for a while, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: anticipation. They wanted to know what life was like without me. They were about to find out. The next morning, I drove downtown to First National Bank, an institution I'd never used before. The marble floors echoed with my footsteps as I approached the new accounts desk, my driver's license bearing my real name, but my intentions anything but honest. "Good morning, Mr. Whitaker. What brings you in today?" The young banker, fresh-faced and eager, had no idea she was facilitating a disappearance. I leaned forward slightly, projecting the image of a cautious middle-aged man making a prudent financial decision. "I'd like to open a separate savings account, something for personal projects." "Certainly. What are your plans for the new account?" "Just want more privacy in my finances. Keep some money separate from the household budget." She nodded enthusiastically, probably thinking I was planning to surprise my wife with something expensive. If only she knew. Within 30 minutes, I'd transferred $8,000, money from an old savings account Loretta had forgotten existed. The convenience store on 8 Mile felt like stepping into a different world. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I purchased 3 prepaid debit cards with cash, each loaded with $500. The clerk barely looked up from her phone screen, just another customer buying anonymous financial tools. "Planning any big purchases?" she asked absently. "Just like to keep my options open." Wednesday, I called in, sick to work, the first time in 3 years, and drove to Lansing. The 90-mile journey took me through changing landscapes, from Detroit's urban sprawl to Michigan's smaller cities and rural areas. I kept to back roads, avoiding highways with their surveillance cameras and electronic toll systems. Lansing felt smaller, quieter than Detroit. The rental market was cheaper here, filled with properties that didn't require extensive background checks or long-term commitments. I found a studio apartment in a converted house near downtown, the kind of place that attracted temporary residents and people who preferred cash transactions. The landlord, a weathered man in his 60s, squinted at the bills I handed him. "Most people pay with cards these days. You sure this money's legitimate?" "Old-fashioned, I guess. Don't trust banks much." He shrugged and pocketed the cash. "First month, last month, security deposit. You want a receipt?" "No need." The apartment was sparse. A Murphy bed, small kitchenette, bathroom with a cracked mirror, perfect for someone who needed to disappear without leaving traces. I paid for 3 months up front, using Harold Walker as my alias, close enough to my real name to remember, different enough to create distance. Thursday brought another shopping trip, this time to a drugstore chain where I bought hair dye, reading glasses with minimal prescription, and clothes from the bargain rack. The cashier, a teenager with purple streaks in her hair, didn't even look at my purchases. "Going for a new look?" she asked, scanning the hair color box. "Time for a change after all these years." That evening, I stood in our bathroom, applying dark brown dye to my graying hair. The chemical smell filled the small space as I watched decades of silver disappear down the drain. In the mirror, a stranger looked back, someone younger, more serious, with darker hair and cheap glasses that changed the shape of my face. Loretta knocked on the door. "Harlan? What's that smell?" "Just fixing a clogged drain. Be out in a minute." I cleaned up carefully, disposing of the evidence in a gas station dumpster on my way to work the next morning. My coworkers noticed the hair change, but attributed it to midlife crisis, making jokes about younger women and sports cars. If they only knew what I was really planning. The weekend gave me time for final preparations. I gathered essential documents from our home office filing system: birth certificate, passport, social security card, banking information. Everything fit into a small briefcase that I could carry without suspicion. Sunday night, I sat in my car outside our house, looking at the warm yellow light spilling from the kitchen windows. Inside, I could see Loretta cleaning dishes while Juniper sat at the table, probably scrolling through social media. The image of domestic tranquility that I had worked 37 years to maintain. Tomorrow would change everything. They would discover what life was like without their reliable ATM, their taken-for-granted provider. The thought should have brought satisfaction, but instead I felt an unexpected tightness in my chest. Was I really ready to shatter this carefully constructed life? To teach them a lesson that might permanently alter our relationships? I turned off the engine and walked toward the house, my transformation complete but my resolve still crystallizing. At 5 in the morning, I stood in our bedroom doorway, watching Loretta sleep. Her breathing was deep and peaceful, one arm draped across the space where I usually lay. 32 years of marriage, and she had no idea this might be our last morning together for months. Juniper's door was closed, soft music leaking through the walls from whatever she'd fallen asleep listening to. 20 years of bedtime stories, scraped knees, and father-daughter moments, all about to be tested by my absence. I'd already packed everything into 2 small duffel bags: clothes, documents, toiletries, the burner phone I'd activated yesterday. Amazing how little a man actually needed when stripped down to essentials. The briefcase with financial documents sat by the front door, ready for my new life. The note I'd written last night lay on my desk, 3 sentences that would explain nothing and everything. Gone to find myself. Don't know when I'll return. H. I placed it on the kitchen table, right where Loretta would see it when she came down for coffee. The spot where we'd eaten thousands of meals together, where Juniper had done homework, where our family had gathered for countless ordinary moments that I'd apparently taken for granted. My phone sat next to the note, the device that had connected me to work emails, family schedules, and the constant demands of being everyone's solution to every problem. Leaving it behind felt like severing an umbilical cord. The burner phone felt foreign in my pocket, a cheap plastic rectangle with a number nobody knew. Freedom and isolation wrapped in a $10 package from the convenience store. I carried my bags to the garage, loaded them into my car, and started the engine as quietly as possible. The automatic door opener seemed impossibly loud in the pre-dawn silence, but no lights appeared in any windows. My family slept on, oblivious to the earthquake about to hit their comfortable suburban world. The streets were empty except for early shift workers and delivery trucks. I took Middlebelt Road south, avoiding the highways and their electronic surveillance systems. Back roads through neighborhoods I'd lived near for decades but never really explored, each mile putting more distance between me and the life I was abandoning. Sunrise came as I crossed into Ingham County, painting the rural landscape in soft gold and pink. Fields stretched away from the road, dotted with farmhouses where other families were probably starting their days. Normal families who appreciated each other, where fathers weren't just walking bank accounts. The Lansing apartment felt different in daylight, smaller, more sterile, like a hotel room where someone might stay temporarily while transitioning between lives, which I supposed was exactly what it was. I unpacked methodically, hanging clothes in the narrow closet, arranging toiletries on the bathroom shelf, setting up the laptop on the small table that served as both desk and dining surface, creating the infrastructure for a life lived in hiding. The fake social media accounts took 20 minutes to establish. Facebook and Instagram profiles for Harold Walker, with photos downloaded from stock image sites, generic enough to blend in, real enough to pass casual inspection. Most importantly, they would let me monitor my family's online activity without them knowing. By noon, I was settled in my new temporary existence. Sparse furniture, cheap appliances, a view of a parking lot instead of our carefully maintained backyard. Everything I'd given up for this experiment in teaching ungrateful people what they'd lost. I opened my laptop and logged into Harold Walker's Facebook account. From here, I could watch my family's digital life unfold, observe their reactions to my disappearance, see how long it took them to move from annoyance to concern to genuine worry. The waiting began. In a few hours, Loretta would find my note. Sometime this evening, they would realize I wasn't coming home from work. Tomorrow, the first bills would arrive with no one to pay them. My phone, the burner, sat silent on the table. Nobody had this number. Nobody could reach me unless I chose to reach out. For the first time in decades, I was completely unreachable, utterly free from the demands and expectations that had defined my existence. The silence felt both liberating and terrifying. I spent the first day monitoring my family's digital footprints from my sparse Lansing apartment, waiting for someone to discover my absence. The fake Harold Walker accounts gave me access to their social media worlds without them knowing their disappeared father was watching every post, every comment, every casual dismissal of his existence. Loretta found the note Tuesday evening. I knew because her Facebook status appeared at 8:47 p.m. Anyone know where Harlan might be? He left a strange note and didn't come home from work, starting to worry. The comments rolled in within minutes, mostly from her friends offering support and theories. But it was the tone that struck me. Nobody seemed genuinely concerned, more curious than worried. Men and their midlife crises, wrote Barbara from her book club. He'll be back when he gets hungry, added Nancy from down the street. Maybe he finally decided to do something spontaneous for once, suggested Marigold, my sister-in-law, whose laughter had echoed through our dining room just days ago. Wednesday brought Juniper's first Instagram post about the situation. She'd taken a selfie in our kitchen, making an exaggerated, worried face that was clearly performative. My dad decided to have a midlife crisis and went to find himself. Men are so dramatic when they don't get enough attention. Like, just buy a sports car and get over it. The post received 43 likes and 15 comments, mostly from her college friends making jokes about dad behavior and boomer drama. Her own father's disappearance had become content for her social media presence. Marigold commented, "Boys are always so dramatic. He'll come crawling back when reality hits." By Thursday, Loretta's posts were becoming more frequent but no more urgent. She'd called my office, discovered I'd taken sick leave, and was now reaching out to my few friends and coworkers. But her updates read like someone dealing with a minor inconvenience rather than a missing spouse. Still no word from Harlan. He took time off work without telling anyone. Very unlike him, but I'm sure he's fine. Men need their space sometimes. The automatic payment failures started that same day. Our electric bill, usually withdrawn electronically on the 28th, bounced back insufficient funds. I'd transferred most of our checking account balance to my new account, leaving barely enough to cover a few days of normal expenses. Loretta posted about it Friday morning. Having some banking issues. Does anyone know why automatic payments might not be working? Technology is so confusing sometimes. The comments were helpful, but clueless. Friends suggesting she call the bank, check her account balance, or contact customer service. Nobody connecting her husband's disappearance to their sudden financial difficulties. I found myself refreshing their profiles obsessively, watching my family's reaction to my absence unfold in real time. The responses were exactly what I'd predicted: dismissal, jokes, treating my disappearance as an inconvenience rather than a crisis. But something unexpected was happening too. As I watched Juniper's posts become slightly more desperate, fewer selfies, more questions about whether anyone had seen her dad, I felt a twist of something that might have been guilt. Friday night, she posted a photo of our family from last Christmas, all of us smiling around the tree I'd driven 40 miles to find, because she'd mentioned wanting a really tall one. The caption was different from her usual tone. Okay, starting to actually worry about my dad. It's been 4 days and this isn't like him. If anyone has heard from Harlan Whitaker, please let me know. I know I give him a hard time, but I just want to know he's safe. Sitting in my stripped-down apartment, reading my daughter's first genuine expression of concern, I felt the satisfaction of my plan being validated, mixed with an uncomfortable realization that I might be hurting the people I was trying to teach. The lesson was working. They were starting to understand what they'd lost. But was I prepared for what that understanding might cost all of us? 2 weeks after my disappearance, I sat in Murphy's Cafe on Elmwood Street, watching through the window as a Detroit Edison truck pulled up to my former home. The coffee had gone cold in my hands, but I couldn't look away from what I'd orchestrated. The utility worker, a middle-aged man in a hard hat, walked directly to our electrical meter. No hesitation, no sympathy for the suburban family about to lose power. Just routine disconnection of services for non-payment. I watched Loretta rush outside in her bathrobe, still holding her morning coffee. Even from across the street, I could see her gesturing frantically, probably explaining that this was all a misunderstanding, that her husband always handled the bills. How could you disconnect? My husband always paid on time. Her voice carried across the quiet morning air. The worker shrugged and continued his task. Ma'am, you're 47 days past due. I'm just following company orders. The click of the disconnect was audible even from my surveillance post. Suddenly, our house went dark. No more humming refrigerator, no digital clocks blinking, no power for Juniper's endless phone charging and social media scrolling. Inside the cafe, I ordered another coffee to maintain my cover. The barista, a college-age girl with green hair, smiled pleasantly. She had no idea she was serving coffee to a man watching his own family's world collapse in real time. My burner phone buzzed with a news alert from the fake Facebook account I'd created. Loretta had posted frantically, "Electric company made a mistake. Anyone know how to get emergency power restoration?" The comments were less supportive than before. Friends offered sympathy, but no solutions. Grady commented, "Can't you just pay the bill?" Marigold added, "Have you tried calling Harlan's work?" By afternoon, I watched Juniper emerge from the house, her usually perfect appearance disheveled. No hair straightener, no makeup mirror lighting, no Instagram-ready selfie setup. She walked to the neighbor's house, probably asking to charge her phone. "Mrs. Patterson, could I use your outlet? Our power got cut off by mistake." Through the neighbor's window, I could see the conversation wasn't going well. Mrs. Patterson was polite but brief. Nobody wanted to get involved in our family's financial drama. That evening, Loretta's car pulled into the driveway with Grady and Marigold. I'd seen this coming. Family meeting to discuss the crisis. From my observation post, I watched them gather around our dining room table, the same table where they'd laughed at my expense just weeks ago. The conversation was heated, with lots of gesturing and raised voices. Finally, Grady and Marigold left, their body language suggesting they'd refused to help. No surprise there. When the money stopped flowing, the fair-weather relatives disappeared. Loretta posted again that night. "Does anyone know emergency financial assistance programs? Temporary hardship situation." The responses were telling. Fewer friends engaging, more suggesting she call her husband's family or contact social services. The middle-class social circle was uncomfortable with actual poverty knocking at their door. Juniper's Instagram had evolved too. Gone were the dismissive jokes about her dramatic dad. Her latest post showed their dark house with a simple caption, "Anyone hiring? Need a job ASAP." For the first time, she was facing real consequences. No power meant no laptop for online classes, no hairstyling tools, no ability to maintain the lifestyle she'd taken for granted. The comments were mostly from friends offering sympathy and a few actual job suggestions. I spent 3 more days watching the house from various locations around the neighborhood. The cafe, the park across the street, even the library parking lot. Each day brought new evidence of their struggles. Day 4. I watched Juniper walk to 3 different businesses, probably filling out job applications. Her usual confident stride was replaced by nervous, purposeful movement. Day 5. Loretta carried bags out to her car, probably clothes and household items to sell. The woman who'd laughed at her provider husband was now liquidating possessions to buy groceries. Day 6. Cable and internet trucks arrived for disconnection. More services cut off. More isolation from their social networks and entertainment. Sitting in Murphy's Cafe on the 7th day, watching my daughter walk back from what looked like a job interview, I felt something unexpected. She looked smaller somehow, less entitled, more aware of the world beyond her phone screen. Was this enough? Had they learned what I'd intended to teach them? On April 20th, I watched Detective Johnson's unmarked car pull into our driveway from behind the newspaper rack at Patterson's convenience store. Loretta had finally involved the police, though I'd expected this step weeks ago. Through the store's window, I observed the detective, a heavy-set black woman in her 40s, spending nearly an hour inside our house. She took notes, examined my abandoned phone, and probably asked all the standard questions about my mental state and recent behavior. When she emerged, Loretta followed her to the front porch, gesturing desperately. I couldn't hear their conversation, but Loretta's body language screamed frustration. "Mrs. Whitaker, your husband isn't a missing person in the criminal sense," Detective Johnson said, her voice carrying across the quiet street. "He's an adult who left voluntarily. We have the note." "But this isn't like him?" Loretta's voice cracked with genuine distress. "Harlan wouldn't just abandon his responsibilities. Ma'am, thousands of people disappear every year because of financial stress, family problems, or midlife crisis. Without evidence of foul play or mental incapacity, there's limited action we can take." I adjusted my position behind the newspaper rack, ensuring my fake mustache and different glasses remained in place. The disguise had been working perfectly for 3 weeks now. None of the neighbors recognized Harold Walker, the quiet man who occasionally browsed magazines at Patterson's. After the detective left, I walked to the public library to check social media updates on the communal computers. Juniper's Instagram showed a photo of her in a coffee shop uniform. Day 3 at Grind Coffee. Learning that work is actually hard. Who knew? The comments were a mix of encouragement and surprise from friends who'd never seen her hold a job. Some classmates made jokes about slumming it, but others offered genuine support. She was starting to separate real friends from superficial ones. Loretta's Facebook posts had become increasingly desperate. Bank threatening foreclosure if we don't catch up on mortgage payments. Anyone know loan modification programs? The bank letter had arrived that morning. I'd watched the mail carrier deliver it, then observed Loretta's face drain of color as she read the contents. 90 days of missed payments would trigger formal foreclosure proceedings. That afternoon, I followed Loretta to 3 different pawn shops on 8 Mile. From my car, I watched her emerge from each one with smaller amounts of cash, selling jewelry and electronics that represented decades of gifts and purchases. At Golden Eagle Pawn, I got close enough to overhear her conversation with the owner. "Best I can do for these earrings is $50. But they were worth $300 when my husband bought them. Maybe retail lady, but I gotta resell them. Take it or leave it." She took it. The woman who'd mocked my role as family provider was now converting wedding gifts into grocery money. That evening, Juniper's shift at Grind Coffee overlapped with my own coffee purchase. I sat in the back corner, fake mustache and glasses in place, watching my daughter work her first real job. She moved carefully, still learning the coffee machine routines, treating every customer interaction seriously. When a businessman snapped at her for foam being too thick, she apologized professionally instead of getting defensive. "I'm sorry, sir. Let me remake that for you." The customer softened at her genuine politeness. "Thanks. Appreciate it." This was a different Juniper than the entitled 20-year-old who dismissed her father as an ATM. Work was teaching her lessons about human interaction that college and suburban comfort never had. But watching her struggle with the espresso machine, Seeing her tired expression after an 8-hour shift, I felt an unexpected tightness in my chest. She was learning, growing, becoming more thoughtful, maybe too quickly. Loretta's latest Facebook post appeared as I checked social media before leaving the library. "Harlan, if you're reading this somehow, please come home. We understand now. We're sorry." The desperate sincerity in her words was different from the casual dismissal of 4 weeks ago. No jokes from friends, no lighthearted comments about dramatic husbands. Just genuine support from people who could see our family was truly struggling. As I drove back to my Lansing apartment, I kept thinking about Juniper's exhausted face after her coffee shop shift. The lesson was working, maybe too well. Had I pushed them far enough, or was it time to escalate once more? May 20th dawned clear and cold in Lansing. I'd spent the previous night assembling the most damaging financial documents from our 32 years of marriage. Bank statements showing Juniper's credit card spending, Loretta's shopping expenses, and a detailed breakdown of their monthly consumption versus my income. The public library opened at 9. I arrived early, positioning myself at a computer terminal in the back corner where security cameras couldn't capture my screen. The printer hummed quietly as I reproduced evidence of their financial dependency. Juniper's credit card statements from last year. $12,400 monthly average on clothes, cosmetics, and entertainment. Loretta's spending patterns. $800 monthly on household expenses that included salon visits and lunch dates with friends. Together, they consumed 90% of my take-home pay. The anonymous letter took 3 drafts to perfect. Perhaps now you'll understand what real human value means. For 37 years, one person carried this family financially while being treated as invisible. The attached documents show exactly how much your ATM provided. Maybe you'll appreciate actual work versus taking everything for granted. No signature, no return address, nothing that could trace back to Harold Walker or Harlan Whitaker. At the post office, I paid cash for overnight delivery to our house. The clerk, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, processed the package without interest. No return address? Anonymous gift for a friend. She shrugged and stamped the shipping label. By tomorrow morning, my family would receive 30 pages of financial reality they'd never bothered to understand. Back in my apartment, I monitored social media through the fake accounts. Juniper was posting from her coffee shop shift. Month 2 at grind, getting better at latte art, small victories matter. The change in her tone was remarkable. No entitled complaints, no mocking comments about her situation. She was genuinely trying to build something through her own effort, but they still needed to understand the full scope of what they'd lost. Tuesday morning brought immediate results. Loretta's Facebook status appeared at 8:23 a.m. Someone sent us anonymous documents about our finances. Whoever did this, it's cruel to kick people when they're already down. The comments were sympathetic, but fewer than before. Friends were getting tired of the ongoing financial drama, especially with anonymous elements adding mystery and discomfort. Juniper's Instagram post came 2 hours later. A photo of the financial documents spread across our kitchen table. Her caption was different from anything she'd posted since my disappearance. Someone sent us proof of how much my dad actually sacrificed for our family. The numbers are devastating. Dad, if this is you, if you can see this somehow, please come back. I understand now what we put you through. I'm sorry. The post received over 200 likes and dozens of comments. Friends who'd been joking about dramatic fathers were now offering genuine support and apologies for their previous dismissiveness. But the real impact came from an unexpected source. One of Juniper's college friends shared the post, adding her own comment. "This is heartbreaking. How did nobody in this family know they were spending this much?" The viral sharing began slowly, then accelerated. Local Detroit social media groups picked up the story of the missing father and the financial reality his family never understood. Strangers were commenting about their own family financial dynamics, about taking providers for granted. By Wednesday evening, a local news station had contacted Loretta about doing a human interest story on families who don't discuss finances. She declined, but the attention was making our situation public in ways I hadn't anticipated. Juniper's response to the media attention surprised me. My family's privacy matters more than getting sympathy. My dad deserves better than having our business discussed by strangers. She was protecting our family name, taking responsibility for their situation instead of seeking external validation or pity. The growth was real, but so was the pain I was causing. Thursday night, I sat in my sparse apartment, staring at Juniper's latest post, a simple photo of our family from last Christmas, all of us around the tree. Her caption read, "I miss my dad. Not because we need money, but because I need my father. I was wrong about everything. If you're out there, Dad, please forgive me." The comments section was filled with friends offering support, sharing their own stories about appreciating parents, and expressing hope that our family would reunite. For the first time since leaving, I felt genuine doubt about my plan. They understood now. They were changed, learning, growing into better people. Juniper was working, Loretta was managing finances independently. Both were experiencing real consequences. But was continuing to punish them at this point revenge or just cruelty? 3 days after sending the anonymous documents, I found myself staring at Juniper's tearful Instagram video for the 20th time. Her words kept echoing in my sparse Lansing apartment. "Dad, if this is you, if you can see this somehow, please come back. I understand now what we put you through." The satisfaction I'd expected from her suffering wasn't there. Instead, I felt something uncomfortable twisting in my chest, something that might have been guilt. I opened my laptop and searched Therapist Lansing, Michigan. If I was going to continue this psychological warfare, I needed to understand what was happening to me. Why did watching my daughter's genuine pain feel worse than enduring her casual cruelty? Dr. Thaddeus Klein's office was located in a professional building downtown, neutral beige walls and comfortable furniture designed to encourage confession. I'd booked the appointment under my Harold Walker alias, claiming family relationship issues as my primary concern. "What brings you here today, Harold?" Dr. Klein was a soft-spoken man in his 50s, gray beard and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. His voice carried the practiced calm of someone who'd heard every possible human crisis. "I'm having trouble with my family. We had a conflict, and now I'm watching them struggle with the consequences of their actions." "Tell me about this conflict." I chose my words carefully, mixing truth with fiction. For years, they treated me like I was only valuable for what I could provide financially. They made it clear that my worth was measured in dollars, not as a person. That must have been painful. So I removed myself from the situation. Let them experience life without their provider. Dr. Klein leaned forward slightly. "And how do you feel watching them struggle?" The question caught me off guard. Satisfied, mostly. They're finally learning what real work means, what actual consequences look like. Mostly satisfied? I hesitated. Sometimes I watch my daughter at her job. She works at a coffee shop now, and she looks exhausted, defeated, and I feel... What do you feel, Harold? Pain, which doesn't make sense. This is what I wanted. Over the following 2 weeks, I attended 3 more sessions with Dr. Klein. Each appointment chipped away at the cold satisfaction I'd built around my heart, like armor. "Revenge rarely brings the satisfaction we hope for," he said during our 4th meeting. "Usually it just creates new pain for everyone involved. They used me for 37 years, and now you're using their dependency on you. Is that equal justice, or are you becoming what you resented in them?" The question followed me back to my apartment, where I continued monitoring my family's digital footprints. Juniper's posts had evolved from desperate pleas to quiet determination. Photos of her learning latte art, small victories at work, genuine gratitude for customers who treated her kindly. Loretta had started posting about job interviews, her first employment applications in 20 years. The woman who'd dismissed my concerns about being appreciated was now experiencing what it meant to be evaluated based on worth rather than taken for granted. But they were also losing everything. The house was officially in foreclosure proceedings. They'd moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on 8 Mile, sharing space that was smaller than our old garage. "What would forgiveness look like for you?" Dr. Klein asked in our 5th session. "I don't know if I'm ready for forgiveness." "I'm not asking if you're ready. I'm asking what it would look like if you were." That night, I drove to Detroit and parked outside their new apartment building. Through a ground-floor window, I could see Juniper studying at a small table, probably doing homework between work shifts. Loretta was washing dishes in a kitchenette that was barely larger than a closet. They looked tired but not defeated, changed but not broken. They were adapting, learning, growing into people who understood the value of effort and sacrifice. Maybe they'd learned enough. Maybe it was time to consider whether my lesson had achieved its purpose, or if I was just prolonging suffering for the sake of being right. June 15th arrived with an email notification on my phone that changed everything. Juniper had posted a video to her Instagram account at 2:47 a.m. Never a good sign for emotional content. I opened the link while sitting in my morning coffee shop in Lansing, the same place where I'd monitored my family's crisis for months. But this video was different from her previous posts. She'd recorded herself in their tiny apartment bathroom, the only private space available. Her face was swollen from crying, her hair pulled back messily, wearing the coffee shop uniform she'd probably just gotten home from working a double shift. "Dad, wherever you are, I need you to see this." Her voice cracked on the first sentence. "I know you might never forgive me for what I said at your birthday. I called you an ATM, and everyone laughed, and I thought it was funny." She paused, wiping her nose with a tissue. "But you were never just an ATM. You were my hero when I was little. You taught me to ride my bike, you came to every school play, you stayed up helping me with math homework even when you had early meetings, and I threw all of that away for a stupid joke." I found myself leaning closer to the phone screen, watching my daughters break down in a public cafe, while other customers chatted about their normal problems. "Someone sent us documents showing exactly how much money you spent on our family over the years. 37 years of sacrificing everything for us. And Mom and I just took it all. We expected it. We acted like you owed us comfort and stability without ever saying thank you." Her voice grew stronger, more determined. "I have a job now, Dad. It's hard work, and customers can be mean, and my feet hurt after 8-hour shifts. But I understand now what you did for us every single day. I understand that work isn't just about paychecks. It's about dignity and purpose and taking care of people you love." She looked directly into the camera, and I could see the change in her eyes. This wasn't manipulation or performance. This was genuine remorse. "If you can hear this, if you're reading our posts somehow, please come home. Not because we need money. I can work. Mom's getting interviews. We'll figure out the financial stuff. But because I need my dad. I need to tell you I'm sorry and that I love you and that you were never, ever just a provider to me." The video ended with her saying, "I miss you, Daddy," using the name she hadn't called me since she was 12. I watched it 17 more times before noon. By evening, the video had been shared hundreds of times. Comments poured in from friends, strangers, people sharing their own stories about taking family for granted. The local Detroit news had picked it up as a human interest story about family relationships and financial communication. But what broke my resolve completely was Loretta's comment beneath the video. "Harlan, if you're reading this somehow, please come back. We understand now that we need you, not your credit card. We need the man who built this family with love, not money." That night, I sat in my car at the Detroit city limits, engine running, video playing on repeat on my phone. My hands were shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. 3 months. I'd put them through 3 months of genuine hardship to teach them a lesson about appreciation and respect. They'd lost their house, their comfortable lifestyle, their illusions about money appearing magically. But they'd gained something too. Juniper had work ethic and empathy. Loretta had independence and self-reliance. They'd learned to value effort over entitlement. The question was, had they suffered enough? Or was I just a man who'd become addicted to controlling others through their pain? I put the car in drive and headed back toward Lansing, but I only made it 5 miles before pulling over to watch the video one more time. 2 weeks later, I walked into Murphy's Cafe in Detroit, the same place where I'd conducted surveillance on my family months ago. But today, I wasn't hiding behind newspapers or pretending to read magazines. Today I was ready to end this. The cafe had changed ownership and been renamed Grind Coffee. New management, updated decor, and a familiar face behind the counter. Juniper stood at the espresso machine, her back to me, brown hair pulled into a neat ponytail beneath a red visor. She'd lost weight from the physical work, but her movements were confident and practiced. 3 months of employment had transformed her posture from entitled teenager to competent adult. I took a seat at a small table near the counter, my fake mustache and glasses still in place. She hadn't noticed me yet, focused on crafting what looked like an elaborate latte design. "Can I get you anything?" she asked, approaching my table with a coffee pot and professional smile. Her voice was different, warmer, more attentive to customers than she'd ever been to family members. Work had taught her things about treating people with respect that 20 years of suburban comfort never had. Coffee would be great. I kept my voice slightly lower than normal, not ready for recognition yet. She poured carefully, avoiding spills with the precision of someone who'd learned that mistakes cost money. Cream or sugar? Black is fine. I studied her face, looking for traces of the spoiled girl who'd laughed at her father's birthday. She was still there, but tempered by experience and humility. "Can I get you more coffee?" she asked, returning after 10 minutes. "Sure, June." The word hung in the air between us. She froze, coffee pot tilted mid-pour, her eyes snapping to my face with sudden intensity. "Dad?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Is that really you?" I pulled off the fake glasses, meeting her stare directly. "Hello, sweetheart." The coffee pot trembled in her hands before she set it down carefully on my table. Her face cycled through shock, disbelief, anger, and overwhelming relief in the span of seconds. 3 months. Her voice cracked. 3 months I thought I'd lost you forever. And I spent 20 years thinking I'd already lost you. She slumped into the chair across from me, tears starting immediately. "I'm so sorry. We treated you terribly, and you just disappeared. I never went far. Just wanted you to understand what you had before it was gone. You were watching us this whole time? From a distance. I needed to see if the lessons would stick, or if you'd just wait for me to fix everything again." Other customers were starting to stare at our emotional reunion, but Juniper didn't seem to notice. Her manager, a kind-looking older woman, approached our table. "June, take your break. Family comes first." For the next hour, we talked. I explained the apartment in Lansing, the surveillance, the anonymous documents. She told me about learning to work, about understanding the value of effort, about missing her father rather than her family's income source. "We all made mistakes," I said finally. "Question is, what do we do now? Come home?" She reached across the table, taking my hand. "Not to fix our problems. We're learning to handle those ourselves. But because we love you. Because you're my dad, not my ATM." I looked at this young woman who'd grown up in 3 months, who'd learned empathy through struggle and appreciation through loss. She wasn't the same person who'd laughed at my birthday party. Neither was I. There would need to be changes, family therapy, real conversations about money and respect and what we expect from each other. "Yes, absolutely, whatever it takes." I squeezed her hand. "Then let's go home and figure this out together." We walked out of the cafe together, two people who'd both learned difficult lessons about love, sacrifice, and the difference between being needed and being valued. The family that emerged from this crisis would be stronger than the one that had fallen apart. Not because the problems were solved, but because everyone finally understood their part in creating and fixing them. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.